Hello, welcome to the Nintendo Bros podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Derek.
And I'm Mike.
Yes, this week we have a special guest, Mike.
A newcomer.
A newcomer. He's a good old friend of mine, and actually, it's a big moment for us because the fact that we have 3 people on the podcast means we have more people on the podcast than we have listeners.
Incredible.
Mike, how are you today? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your gaming side?
Well, we're pretty familiar here. We used to run a cute little YouTube show called It's Super Effective for a while where we talked about video game facts. And, generally, actually, Pete, you have done a lot to my gaming career, which is a weird thing to think about. But I really honestly believe if it wasn't for you, nudging me into buying a Wii. Actually, side note, Peter has had me basically buy every Nintendo console since the Wii.
I'm a true fan.
And I've only bought these things because of him. Why did I buy a DSL? What was it? DSL
new 3DS.
New
XL?
3DS XL. Yeah, just for the nub because and I quote, I just don't want to have to play Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask on a jank console. I want to play it with the best experience. And it's all it gave me was a nub. I traded in my perfectly fine DS XL, whatever the hell it was, just for that nub. It's incredible.
New 3DS is great. Okay.
Yeah, new 3D. Was it?
Yeah, but hey, we've got a lot to talk about today, guys. So let's just let's jump into it here.
All right.
For one, as some of you may know, Pacman 99 came out just the other week, and this is a Pac-Man Battle Royale style. It's kind of the third one Nintendo has done for their Nintendo Online exclusives. Have you guys tried this out? I mean, have you guys tried Pac-Man 99?
Yeah, I played a bit of it and Tetris 99. Both because you told me to play these 99 games. I haven't really played these 99 games besides for you telling me. I didn't actually play the Mario 35 game or whatever at all.
Real fan. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was fun. I played for it for maybe 12 minutes or 15 minutes for both games. I just am not a big Pac-Man fan or Tetris, and it's only so fun when you lose in the first 3 minutes and just start again and again and again. I'm never going to be the top 50 even, so it doesn't really grab my attention.
Well, what about you, Mike? Because I know you love Tetris. So
yeah, I definitely gave my hand to Tetris 99. I loved playing it. I like the idea. I like the absurdity of seeing the equivalent of 100 Tetris screens at the same time. To me, that's it tickles this area of my brain. It's just this is so utterly ridiculous. And I love the idea, last person standing. It was such a good switch. And I think I don't know if you coined this term, Pete, but I like that you call them retro battle royales. I like that idea all around. However, I've happily let my Nintendo online subscription disappear. I think I haven't upped it for probably over a year.
Only $2 a month.
Yeah, $2 a month. Yeah, for what?
Peter just advertises Nintendo product.
No other human being likes Nintendo more.
Did neither of you guys get a chance to play Super Mario Bros. 35? Because it was only a limited time.
I played Super Mario myself so many times, and I watched streams of it. I watched a streamer play it, but I didn't really care to play it myself.
Because I gotta say, Super Mario Bros. 35 was a fun time. I love the idea of playing these kind of old games, but feeling like I'm playing with and against kind of 100 people from around the world at the same time. It's this, I don't know, it's this weird feeling imagine we could transport ourselves from the 80s to now and see where things have gone.
That's the plot from 13 Sentinels, Agus Rim. So we can always talk about that as well.
Oh, did you play that game? I really want to play that game.
I'm still in the middle of it. It's great.
I'm not a big fan of these. I didn't like Persona 5. We'll get to that later, but
we'll talk about that later. But so I made a couple of notes here based on my experience with Pac-Man 99. For one, there's this giant legal agreement and privacy policy you have to agree to before playing. I've seen this in a couple.
That's how you know
games
it's going to be
now.
a good game.
But it's it's in a couple of games now, and even Bethesda does it with their games. You have to sign in when you have to make a login to play, and
just to play Doom, which is so funny.
What is this? How come I have to sign a user agreement, a 15-page user agreement to play a game now, and I never had to do that, for the last 25 years? I don't know.
I think most companies now, I think if I'm thinking about Ubisoft and EA and Bethesda, they all have like their own accounts. So I mean, I agree with the whole licensing, have to sign a 15-page agreement, but I think it's just to get into an account because they all want to have you
Your data.
on, to data collection. Really, that's the name of the game for every company, right? The more data they have on someone, the better they can sell you. Sell you.
Side
games.
note here, I had to reformat my computer, and I'm just giving in. I'm giving everyone my data now. I'm saying, yeah, you can use my data. You can check on it. Whatever. I don't care. Do it.
I mean, I honestly think now's the best time to give up your data because real data privacy laws are coming in. It's like the last 10 years of data collection are so like the Wild West. I feel like there's that layer of I have no idea what happened to the data breaches from like Equifax or the data breaches from any of these
PlayStation.
other company. Yeah, that's right. And like who's accountable? No one. Like a bunch of people were grumpy about it, but like I think from now on, even if you give away your data, I think more people are interested in making sure your privacy is secure. So.
Well, if it makes our games better, then I'm okay with Nintendo having my data. All right.
Yeah, Nintendo. But like, I mean, Bethesda. Like, I mean, technically,
Hey, I
why
love
am I signing into? Oh yeah, me too. I think they're great.
You mean Microsoft?
Yeah, I was gonna say like I already have a Game Pass account, right? So like, why am I signing into anything at all?
Yeah, totally. Well, anyways, the other thing I noticed, back to Pacman 99, was I was playing on my Pro Controller, and this game is absolutely unplayable with the Pro Controller's D-pad. I don't know if you experienced this, Derek.
I did. I felt the same way. I couldn't navigate the corners very well.
It's absolutely unplayable. Like, I had to go to the settings and switch to the analog stick, which kind of brings me to a tangent. I've noticed that this generation, I'm kind of giving up on D-pad gaming, and I've kind of gotten used to using the analog stick for all 2D games. Just because the D-pads across the board seem pretty weak. And to be honest, I don't really have a problem with it. Like, I'm okay playing. I got used to Smash Bros. I got used to Hollow Knight. All these indie games, I'm playing entirely with the analog stick. I mean, what do you guys say about that?
You ever played Smash Bros. Without an analog stick?
Oh, no, I just mean that was the game, I guess, that got me used to the idea of playing a 2D, somewhat side-scroller with an analog stick. So I guess I'm so accustomed to it.
With a D-pad. When it was a Smash Brothers Brawl
on the Wii. You played with the Wii.
Yeah,
remote.
on the Wii. Yeah, I played with the Wii remote sideways. It was wacky.
You were pretty good that way, I gotta say.
I agree with you, Peter. For the most part, I play the analog stick. The one game that I really can't probably ever do that is any Metroid game. Like I remember playing the Samus 2. It feels weird to play with the analog stick. Like I want to play with the
3DS. You mean the Samus Returns?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no problem with the analog nub, or whatever you call it.
To me, that's not how I want to. I've always played the 2D Metroids with a D-pad, so it just feels weird to me.
Well, I thought about.
Did you guys ever play the fan-made Another Metroid 2 remake?
The AM2R?
Yeah.
No, but it looked great.
It's quite good. I played it just before I played the official release, and I think in many regards it has a lot of ideas that I wish were ported over. There is like a quality, like the quality is so tight, and like their ideas for additional enemy designs is really hardcore. So I definitely recommend it.
Well, they also just are you gonna talk about this, Derek? The Metroid Prime 2D?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Metroid Prime 2D looks really cool. I was about to say the same thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's here. I got
but
a little.
That'll get cease and desist.
Yeah, Nintendo's largest,
it's already
right?
Yeah, the Nintendo ninjas.
He's already in jail. Okay, guys, I have a little Nintendo joke here for you.
Oh, great.
What was the most villainous thing Wario has ever done? Scammed the 10 people into buying Game & Wario on Wii U.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Sorry, I actually saw that joke online and I laughed.
Great.
Anyways, let's get into some modern news. Okay.
Slow clap.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. Thanks for the support, guys. Tough crowd here. Let's get into some news here. So today, Nintendo had their Indie World Showcase. They used to call it Nindies, which I thought was a cool name. I guess they've given up on that name. So did you guys watch this?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I did live. Yep.
So
I watch it afterwards on fast forward mostly.
Well, Mike, why don't you start us off? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything you're excited about or piqued your interest? What was your impressions?
I mean, let me just crack open my my podcast notes here.
Because I mean, yeah, I know Fez would be big for you, right?
Oh, yeah, right at the bottom. It's so good. It's like so phenomenal.
9 years later.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know what though?
You didn't like
thing that
Fez?
Oh, I love Fez. Fez is one
Oh,
of the best games ever made. The thing that's funny, sad to me is this is like a small, tiny tangent about Fez, but when it came out on Xbox 360, I unlocked its avatar, and because Phil Fish was so anti Microsoft after the whole experience, he vowed that it would never come out for any other Microsoft console. But my avatar is still valid, but because at the time, with pixel density and size, it's like so much of a smaller avatar than what would be like normal now. So when I open up my Xbox, it will load up my profile, but inside of that circle is this tiny little square with this tiny little pixelated Fez, and it'll always be that way, I hope, for the rest of my life, but I'll never be able to make it any larger because legal. Anyway, I think that's funny.
Are you going to buy Fez on the Switch?
I actually own 4 copies of Fez already,
Oh my
so
God.
probably not. Yeah, because I bought it on Steam. I bought it on Steam. I bought it on Xbox, and I bought it for 2 other friends. I just love Fez. I think it's brilliant.
did you 100% that game? Because there's QR codes and websites and stuff in that game.
Yeah, so I can't suggest that I 100%ed it. I definitely had to use a guide for some areas, but Fez still holds a spot in my brain for being one of the only games that has delighted me without me I figured it out on my own in some areas where I was just oh my god.
We gotta talk puzzle
brilliant.
games later. I have so many puzzle games.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Fez made by entirely one person?
I think it's a couple of guys, but it was led by Phil Fish. Yeah.
Yeah, who's a little controversial, but he's French.
You might also be thinking of the game Braid too, Peter.
Okay, maybe. Well, anyways, anything else stand out to you, Mike? Or are you just such a Scrooge you don't care?
Yeah, there's a couple. So I saw Ollie Ollie, great. I'm always
Ollie
happy
Ollie
for another
World.
skateboard.
And did you play
Yeah,
Ollie Ollie
World,
1 and
yeah.
2?
I played the first one. It was fun, but I just let it go. I find runners not super engaging. I just think they're fun to play occasionally. The game that I was most intrigued by, though, there was a Skull is kind of cool looking. I think I've seen some trailers for it before. Chris Dales has a cool, interesting look to it, though I don't think I'd ever play it. I thought the Ninja Turtles game, I figure everyone will talk about this. We can talk about it later. I think it looks fantastic. Animations are great. I'm just not a beat 'em up guy. However, There Is No Game looks awesome. I love WarioWare. I like the idea that there's some weird narrative driven mini game block of series of tiny games that look like they're
Sorry,
on GBA.
that you're talking about not another.
There is no game.
There is no.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I got lost with the name of the game because the name of the game is so weird.
There Is No Game.
I don't.
Exactly.
You know what? The last time I saw a game like that tried to mix it up was that game where you could remember that game. I don't remember what it was called, where you could make your own game by selecting 2 different properties, and it looked really cool. But I don't know. I guess I don't trust. I don't trust indie developers to make a game with so many different physics and gameplay styles. I just think it'll probably not be good. But
I don't know. I mean, I'll give it a shot. I think there's an entire. I feel like the genre of tiny little fun games has kind of all but disappeared and gone away. So I think it's a good opportunity to try something new in that space, even if it sucks. It looks great.
true. Okay, what did you think, Derek? Any standouts for you?
Yeah, I think very similar to Mike, but my number one standout was probably Skull. That game looked awesome.
Yeah.
It just looks really fun. Looks fast paced.
It reminds me of Dead Cells, the graphic style.
Yeah, exactly. It's a roguelite too, so it just looks like a lot of fun. I agree with Chris Tales. It looks really, really cool art style, but I don't really know if that's something I'll play. The game that really interests me the most, that really I will probably never play it or buy it, but it looks really interesting, is The Longing, the game where you have 400 days.
400
I was going to
days,
mention
yeah.
that.
Because I just don't. It's out now. It came out today, and it's just one of those games where it's well, I almost want to buy it just to see what the game is, but I don't really think I'd like the game.
Well, I mean, it looks like the game takes pride in being boring.
I know,
mean,
but that's what I mean.
real
It's
time,
I
400
just
days?
I just well, they said you can beat the game without actually going through 400 days.
What
But I
happens
just-
what happens at the end of 400 days? Is does no one know for a year and change?
Or there's a way you can shorten the time, or you kill yourself at the end of the game before the time runs out. Go insane.
Wouldn't
The
it be
game-
interesting that you every time you have to start from 0? So it's it's that, that classic thing where like friends will say, "Oh, I'm so good at this game, like I'll never die even if I've never played it before." Like, and so you like hand a controller, then everybody's a little bit nervous and concerned. It'd be so funny if you die, resets to 0, and like we have the hope is
To
that
wait a minute, you're like at the one more day left.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like we hope somebody perfects it all the way to day 400 just to find out. It's like
someone has
that
one
would be
day
a
left,
nightmare.
and then their friend's like, "Let me play,"
Exactly.
and then they just die right away, and you're like, "No."
Yeah, that's when you know that there's like what do you call, like plants, people that are like going around. "Oh, I am your friend. Pass me the controller." They just like ruin their game save. Just
I mean, truthfully, I thought the game looked really boring. Like the movement looked slow. It looks like
yeah,
you're just
everything
banging
about
on
it
crystals. It
it
looks
looked bad.
awful. Yeah,
But to me, that's what I mean. I would never buy it or play it, but it looks interesting. Like I'm kind of looking at it and saying, I want to watch someone else play it almost.
I love the idea that no one knows what happens. Like if there's like events that trigger on day 200, and no one knows what happens until that day. That would be really cool. No way to time travel and all that. It's a neat concept. Did anything else stand out for you, Derek? Or
So I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We'll talk about that. But another game that looked really cool, and I want to see more about and see more gameplay of is Aztec Forgotten Gods. I think it was called.
oh yeah,
That game honestly kind of blew me away. It's 3D, looks kind of open worldish. The gameplay looks fun and fast. It has a cool art style, kind of a cool idea. I like the characters and the models. So I mean, that's a game that is kind of on my radar. So yeah, the other games at the beginning, Road 96 and Last Stop, those kind of story games didn't really interest me.
Those don't do much for me personally.
Yeah,
actually, I was gonna make that. I made a little comment here, which is like, Road 96 is not the only hitchhiking procedurally generated game to be launched. I think this year. I think there's a couple of them. And I'm like, is this a trend? Is this like hitchhiking games becomes like the new roguelike? It's like, oh yes, narrative driven stories while you're traveling by hitchhiking. It's just so bizarre.
There was one moment in that game in the trailer where like they were shooting a gun off the back of a truck, and I'm like, whoa, like there's actually different gameplay styles. But I guess I always go back to that kind of feeling of like, how can an indie team master all these different gameplay styles? So it's gonna falter.
Hey guys, you guys want to talk about some indie games? Because like they're gonna be shit. You know what I'm saying? Because like they're not AAA developers. Yeah,
Let me talk.
You know what I mean?
For one, I thought you guys haven't mentioned one that I thought looked cool, which was the House of the Dead 2 remake.
I totally skipped by that.
I know it was in the.
I didn't even put that on my list.
It was in the sizzle trailer, but I don't know. I've just wanted light gun shooters back since the Wii, and they're just such a fun pick up and play game to play with people. And I love the House of the Dead series, so I'm excited to give that a look. I mean, it didn't look that good, but hopefully it's discount priced.
I still prefer Type of the Dead. That's the better one.
Yes, but I mean, if the keyboard add-on,
Yeah, that's how amazing that'd be. The Switch keyboard add-on.
I gotta say, so yeah, seriously, $79.99. I gotta say, I agree with both of you. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. I mean, I know Derek. I know you're excited. I don't know about you, you're not as excited, Mike. But to me, I think it looked amazing.
Oh, that's day one.
I haven't day one. I haven't wanted like to me. This looks like the best Ninja Turtle game since Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo. And it looks like they've really paid homage to it. And if you look at the details in the background, there's lots of stuff like they're at the Channel 6 news studio. There's Bebop and Rocksteady. Like there's a lot of true Ninja Turtle fandom there. Not to mention,
I like when they go into the office building and they sort of fight and like a bunch of like the foot
they're on the
soldiers are there,
computers,
like typing on the computer, and they take off their ties. Like that to me is like really a cute little detail. It's like, what do the foot soldiers do on their downtime? It's like, well, we have taxes, so
use Facebook. But I don't know, there's something, just even the combat looked just crunchy and well animated. It didn't. I mean, I mean, it's a day one, and to be honest, I was thinking about it. It's probably my most excited for announced Switch game all year at this point.
Oh my god!
But I mean, that just is a testament to how few announcements there are. I mean, what outshines it for you? I mean,
Pokemon Snap probably. Or honestly, out of that direct, I think Skull was my number one most wanted game.
Really?
Yeah, Skull. To me, Skull is also day one. As long as it doesn't let down, it just looks so crazy and fun.
It does look cool, yeah. You know what I thought was funny was, I don't know if you were looking at the YouTube comments. I was watching it live. There's obviously one game that everybody wants, and I think that's Silk Song. And
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
comments were literally like, "Where's Silksong? Where's Silksong? Can't wait to see Silksong." And at the end they go, "Hey, this is the sizzle reel. This is the end." They go, "Oh wait, we made a mistake. There's one more thing." And I was like rubbing my hands together. I was like, "Time for Silksong." And it's some game where you like walk around and control a radio or something. It didn't.
It's Oxenfree 2, and I think Oxenfree 1 was a really big game.
I mean, it doesn't look bad. I'm sure there's an audience, but it's just kind of like, is this really the one more thing worthy? I don't know.
I think I mean again, I think Oxenfree 1 was a really big game. So I think to see a sequel is kind of big.
Is it exclusive? I wasn't sure.
I don't know about exclusive, and I never played the first one either. I just know the name Oxenfree is like a game a lot of people recommend all over the internet.
Okay, well maybe I'll give it a go. I mean, sometimes I buy indie games that I would have never expected to buy. So who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they could never be as incredible as a AAA title with their ability to build and design great game
Multiple
mechanics,
gameplay.
Yeah, multiple game styles.
I like to give them a little bit of money as a show of credit for for the future.
I probably have more indie Switch games than both you guys combined.
Yeah, but that's because you
probably.
only play a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, you only play Nintendo Switch.
Oftentimes, I just buy them so that they know that Nintendo fans support the third parties, so that third parties continue to support Switch. I'm kidding. But I guess for a lot of these games, I take a very wait and see approach. Like a game like Skull, it could be amazing. It could be something I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get this. This is the big, like Hades. I never had Hades on my radar until I heard the buzz, and then I jumped on. I mean, a bandwagon jumper. And same with that game Aztec, Derek. Like I thought that looked really cool, but I
want to see more of that. Yeah,
it's a wait and see for a lot of these things. So the only game I know I'm gonna buy is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game.
What did you think of that game? We didn't talk about it yet. Getsu Fumiden.
That's the Konami game, right?
I can't remember. It's another roguelite. It almost looks like Dead Cells.
Did you know that that's actually a sequel to a game from the 80s?
I did not know that.
This random deep cut Konami game that's like, it's like, whoa, like they haven't released a game of Stu. What's it called again, Derek?
Getsu Fumiden.
I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but it's a throwback to like an 80s NES / Famicom game, and people are like, whoa, like they brought this back, I didn't like it, to be honest. I watched the trailer twice, and I just don't like how when you attack enemies, like a giant, I guess, Japanese hieroglyphic like covers up the fight. I don't love games that numbers and text pop up all over the screen. So I don't know. It was an instant turn off.
Yeah.
What about you? I mean, are you interested?
I mean, I thought it looked cool. Again, I'm not a big fan of roguelites in general. Like, I think Skull, even though it's a roguelite, I jump on because I think it looks really good. It looks fun and looks kind of crazy and zany the way I want to play one. Getsu Fumiden, again, my issue is more that I didn't think it looked that smooth of a gameplay. It looked a little bit static, or the frame rate wasn't quite as smooth as I'd want it to be. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to see more in that one. I mean, it's more likely that, with the long list of indie games that I want to play, it's probably never going to make, get above the line to actually be purchased, but I don't think it's going to be terrible or anything like that.
It's very true. And okay, well, I mean, the last thing I guess we'll talk about the indies here, because indies are very big on Switch, is, I'm going to loop back to Silksong here. We haven't seen Silksong in a long time. I know probably all three of us are going to buy it. What do you think? Like, why do you think they've been so quiet? Team Cherry has been so quiet. Like, I know it was originally planned as DLC, and now it's going to get its own individual release. I take it that they're going to be, the next time we see it, there's got to be something that big and exciting and new. Like maybe there's a co-op, or maybe there's like completely new style of gameplay, like you can fly or something. I don't know. What do you any thoughts on that, Mike? How about you go?
I think I honestly just think the kind of game that they're building just takes a lot of trial and error and a lot of nuance. Like the thing that sets all of their games apart in general is like Hollow Knight is just so tight, and it's a tight in a way that, like there aren't a lot of games that feel that good. And we've had this conversation previous, and I'd be curious in your thoughts here, Derek, which is like when beating the first boss in Hollow Knight, there's that beautiful moment. Like I think I had like one hit point left, and he like goes down. I felt like the perfect amount of like skill versus like the right amount of tension. Not it wasn't like a bullet sponge like most bosses are. It didn't take me 45 minutes like lots of like RPGs would suggest. It was just like I felt while I was playing, I was in the moment, and it was just like really nice to beat and defeat a boss and be like, damn, okay, great, that was wonderful. And like that is such a tricky nuance. And even in their like their level exploration and all these things, like they test. From my understanding, it's just like the couple of guys, right? It's just two of them.
It's three. Team Cherry was three guys. I think they might have
Yeah.
expanded, but there was three for the first game.
Yeah, and the thing is, like they in a couple of interviews they did with like Mark Brown from Game Maker's Toolkit, they talked off a lot about the amount of time they put into understanding like the amount of frames that go into a particular jump or movement or whatever the case is. And because you're playing as a completely separate character in this case, I think they're probably going to take a lot of that, give a lot of that time and attention to that too. And that takes a lot longer than expected. So, I mean, if you think about most indies, they often produce one, two, or three games unless they grow exponentially, and then they try to keep like either re-releasing them and tightening them up. It's almost like Capcom and like when they were like producing Street Fighters. Every Street Fighter was like a little bit tighter until they got to the full like upgraded version of like
Or
Street
Yacht
Fighter
Club
3 from 2.
and Shovel
Shovel
Knight.
Knight, or even like Stardew Valley and all of its updates.
You got it, 100%. Yeah, Stardew Valley is the most beautiful example because, like, I mean, there's a handful of indie games right now trying to take sort of the Stardew Crown. I think I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a semi 3D, almost like 3D Pokemon style, like Harvest Moon simulator, right? Like, not my style.
I think it's Story
but
of
like,
Seasons. Story of Seasons, right?
no. It's like it's new-ish. Like it hasn't been released yet.
Okay.
It has a lot to do with like building a farm and then going underwater and deep sea diving with mermaids. But the point is overall, like I think the overall piece is that I think a lot of these devs stick with one because the amount of time and effort it takes to build a brand new game, even if it's on the back of another game they've already worked on. So it's
Well,
tough.
but absolutely. I mean, if you look at something like Stardew, they basically took the Harvest Moon formula and went so far beyond it that Natsume hasn't been able to catch up, and it's like
100%.
no one else can really do it. And I mean, I even wonder with something like Hollow Knight, which I would argue is one of the very few 10 out of 10s on Switch. Can other Metroidvanias top it? Can even Nintendo themselves with their Metroid top it? I don't know. So it's like if you get these kind of few passionate game designers who have spent their whole lives kind of planning for their first big game, and they're fans of the series. It's probably a much different development culture than a massive studio of people just wanting a paycheck.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hollow Knight is probably one of the best games. In my opinion, it's one of the best games ever. It's on my games of all
Agree.
time list.
Yep.
And I don't know if other companies will ever be able to do exactly what they did. Not just because of the gameplay, for example, which I agree with Mike. It's very tight. Like talking about the first boss, like it just works so well. It has that perfect balance of being too hard, but not punishing and all those kinds of things. But also the art style and the lore. Like people, if you go on a Reddit, like the lore in this game, if you really look into it, is really, really deep. And the art style is amazing. It's like these hand-drawn and beautiful world full of bugs. And just about when we expect Hollow Knight to come out, I'm a huge Hollow Knight fan, so I actually do follow like what they say, and I check every couple of weeks. I Google if there's an update, and I just found it now about a year ago. They updated saying, we instead of making Silksong an expansion, now that it's actually a brand new game, this bigger scope it's difficult because they're having a lot of trouble with their like development system, like their AI system wasn't working properly for how big this game was now. So they had to like redo everything. And now with COVID-19, they couldn't use their office. So they said, don't expect release until at least late 2021, if not later. So I mean, it could be quite a while.
So maybe we won't even see it at E3.
Yeah, but again, the other thing is Hollow Knight is such a big game where I don't know if a Nintendo Direct is even big enough for it anymore. Like I could see it being one of the big games that shown at E3.
Well, I also wonder I know Silksong was shown at Nintendo's E3. Was it not in 2020 but 2019? I don't wonder if Nintendo has an exclusive premiere of that like they did with the first. I mean, at least the console exclusive release. I don't wonder if they've also, maybe paid some money to get Silksong as a Switch exclusive, at least for the first year or so.
Well, I think most of their sales are on the Switch, so I'm sure there was some kind of negotiation going on there. Because again, that game sold really well, like several million.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the funny thing is, I was thinking about the other day is like, Silksong might be an indie, but I think it's much bigger than an indie. Like, I was thinking about, are they going to sell it for $15? Because they really could just charge full price. They could release it on a boxed retail game, and certainly they're not going to shadow drop it. It's going to be a massive release. So I
think the game's going to be bigger than the first game, better than the first game, and I think it'll probably have like a $39.99 Canadian price tag.
Yeah, a little more money.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a good segue into E3. So E3 2021 is happening. It's going to be a digital event, and they made an announcement the other day. It's going to happen on June 12th to 15th, and it's going to feature content from Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two Interactive, Warner Bros. Games, and Koch Media. Not Sony. And also, just as a side note, Bethesda wasn't mentioned, but they are going to be featured during Xbox's press conference or showcase.
Obviously.
Now, Mike, what do you think? Like, what are you excited to see? I mean, let's focus in on Nintendo a little bit, but also all the games. Like, anything you're excited to see at E3, Mike?
I don't know. The truth is, my engagement with my Switch has declined over the last couple of years. It's become sort of like a secondary. If somebody has the television, I'll consider using that as my additional console. So your 8 or 12 lifetime fans of the podcast might be really disappointed to hear this. But
Mike, you just lost our only 5 listeners.
I'll be here back next week. You know what I mean? But I think. Some of the things that I'm curious about is I really want to see this, and this is more ethereal because I haven't been really following what they're going to be coming out with. I would really love to see something that really deviates from their traditional Nintendo structure. I think you guys will know this better than I will, but I think Splatoon is their last original content, right? Like big game original content, right?
I mean, ARMS.
Sorry, ARMS. That's right. I always forget about ARMS.
I would also argue that Splatoon was a huge game. So maybe in some way you're right, Mike. It was their last big AAA.
Yeah. ARMS wasn't as big.
Let's, on a side note, other than Ring Fit Adventure, which is also selling huge. But I think as far as I
think Ring Fit Adventure is great. It's absolutely phenomenal. I would love to see it.
I would agree. With ARMS, Nintendo's made fighting games before. They've made cartoony fighting games before, but with Splatoon, it was a third-person online shooter. So it definitely was Nintendo's maybe last big deviation into a brand new genre.
Yeah, and not even genre. It's more before that, I'm just thinking about tentpole properties, right? You've got before that, the only kind of, and you guys will know this better than me, but I always thought it was Pikmin. Before that was kind of their big separator. It was that's the only other Nintendo property that I can think of in a long time. And then before that, you clearly have the Pokemon, Mario, Metroid. But a lot of those properties, even though they get Nintendo's sort of showing its age in regards, they're giving it off to other studios who are picking up the ball and doing a really phenomenal job of it. But I'm really curious. I would love to see Nintendo kind of start a new IP. I'd love to see something that is
You missed Xenoblade's been pretty new and pretty big.
Oh, that's interesting. I always thought Xenoblade wasn't like a Nintendo property. I always thought it was part of the kind of long legacy of Xenogears.
But that's I was going to add to that, Mike. Xenoblade, even though Xenoblade Chronicles on Wii was a big kind of now a Nintendo property, it is kind of a spiritual sequel to Xenogears and Xenosaga, so it's kind of not that new.
Yeah, I mean, I just never thought of it as its own property. And it's funny that you can say that, because then I'd be like, well, Shulk's and Smash. It's yeah, but so is everybody, right? So it's I totally didn't even realize that. It's funny.
Wait, Mike, what about Devil's Third?
Devil's Third.
Because Nintendo published that, right?
No, you know what? That's true. I mean, the last Platinum game that I still think about is clearly Nier Automata.
It's not Platinum. It's Itagaki.
Devil's Third. For whatever reason,
he got fired from Team Ninja for sexual harassment.
I thought you. For whatever reason, I thought you were talking about the Wonderful 101, and I don't remember. I don't know why I was thinking that.
But no,
your favorite Wii U exclusive.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, but Anyways, I guess I agree with you, Mike. It would be interesting to see Nintendo deviate from that. I think a lot of people have dreamed of maybe them bringing back Mach Rider, like the motorcycle kind of
Mhm.
road rash style game, and like making it like a gritty GTA open world slash motorcycle racer. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I mean, it's
I don't
gonna.
think so.
My, it's one of those weird things with Nintendo because it's like on one hand, people want to see something new, but then when they show something new like Arms and Splatoon, everyone just says, "Well, where's Pikmin and F Zero?" So there's like this
Yeah.
weird push and pull, I guess they have between should we bring back some old classics or should we go and give us something brand new? So I guess I'm on the other side of the coin. I kind of hope they just bring back some of those old franchises. Like I'd love to see, obviously F Zero come back or Punch Out.
But F Zero was clearly the best of its class. Wouldn't what was that? What was that phrase from the developers on that team? They're like, we couldn't make a better F Zero game. It's the best it could ever
I
be.
don't think a GX is going to be very hard to top, but I would take a GX remaster. Like
I was thinking maybe they should use Microsoft's Flight Sim and make a balloon guy game and just float around the world.
Oh, what a great idea!
as a
I
tribute
could
to
imagine
Iwata.
that too.
Or even just like a city, like how fun would it be just to float around in a balloon and shoot things?
Well, you know what? There was that thing recently where, what was it? What's his name? Phil Spencer did a little live broadcast thing, like a live stream, and I think his name is Dave Grubb, or who's like a journalist who's leaked.
Jeff Grubb, I think.
Jeff Grubb, who's been a very accredited journalist who's like leaked a lot of things. He basically said everything on his shelf meant something, including the Switch. So Phil Spencer, who in previous live streams didn't have a Switch on his shelf, now did have a Switch on his shelf. So people are now wildly speculating what that Switch could mean. Master Chief in Smash, could it be Game Pass on Switch? So maybe it is.
It's Gears of
Balloon.
War 5. Gears of War 5 is being ported to the Switch.
Oh yeah, totally. I don't know. I mean, anyways, I guess for me with E3, I guess Derek and I have talked about it in a previous episode. There's been rumors that Nintendo's expecting to have a breakthrough year, 250 million software sales, which would be a record. Their record right now is 204 million, which was just last year, 2020 with Animal Crossing. So if they are expecting to have this massive year and potentially release a new Switch 4K, they have to have this major slate of games. So is it a new 3D Mario? Is it a new 3D Kirby? Who knows, right? But I guess for me, it's just gimme, gimme, gimme. Derek, what would you like to see or hopes and dreams from Nintendo at E3?
Besides for the obvious like Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever. Honestly, I kind of am the same with Mike. I like to see a new IP, something a little bit different. I feel like they're Nintendo, like, I mean, they sell, so I can't really criticize them for it, but they just play safe. I find they just play the same 8 to 10 franchises, and again, I'll buy them every time because they're always good and fun. But I'd love to see something new or something outside the box, because I find that that's also happening a bit with Sony. In I guess even to an extent, even though they have no exclusive, is Microsoft, but they all just kind of play every exclusive that all three companies have are just sequels or just the kind of an iteration on the games they've already had. And that's why I think a lot of people are turning to these indie games, is because they're not perfect, and they don't have three different gameplays well designed like Peter said, but they are attempting to try something new, whether it's a new story or a new gameplay style or a new graphic style. They're kind of pushing the envelope, and I like to see those. So in a way, I'm almost looking forward to the really standout indies at E3. As weird as that sounds to say.
Interesting.
No, it doesn't sound weird to me at all. I think, and I'm not shocked about that sentiment. I think, like, think about Pokemon. Like, it has such a distinguished formula, and in all iterations of this game, like within their core franchise, they have never really deviated. In excluding the leap to 3D, the deviation of the formula has been minimal at best, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, do you remember the days of like, I can't remember if it's Pokemon Black and White or if it's the one just before that, but I think it's Black and White, where everybody wants to stop people from fighting Pokemon because they believe it's like fighting animals. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And team whoever wants to just like, they want to rid the world of Pokemon fighting because they think it's like animal cruelty. And then it was just like, ha ha ha, but actually, we are actually not doing that. And it's like, oh, but that was such a cool idea for a theme, and like really on the nose. It could have been really great. Like, I totally understand. It's a game designed for children, and then clearly, our 30 plus audience that is like desperate to grind for 800 hours.
Oh, come
But
on.
like, or train their EVs up to like
Mike's
infinity.
just
Um,
pissing on
but
our
I mean,
fans here.
but I mean, the truth is, I think that I think they could do such a solid job of deviating from those formulas. And Peter said this before in the past, but like Kirby's sort of their paintbrush for this, where often Kirby takes the opportunity to try something completely brand new. But because there's no like staple there, they fall back to what's already been tried and true for them, and I think that's like slightly depressing in your end. I think I agree with you, Derek.
I mean, but it also comes to the point where, I mean, would you have considered something like Metroid Prime when it came out for GameCube new? I mean, it's based on an old property, it's based on an established franchise, but it's also doing completely brand new things.
I would consider that being completely brand new, but I wouldn't consider something like Super Mario Maker even something that. I mean, that one's a little bit different, but I mean,
pretty new.
Yeah, but I mean, Splatoon 3 and Splatoon 3, or Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3, or Metroid Prime 4, or even if there's a Pikmin 4, or I'm thinking of Donkey Kong games, Super Smash Bros. Like again, I love all those games. It's not or Zelda. There's no criticism to any of those games. Fire Emblem, no criticism to any of those games. But where is that game? Nintendo always makes these brand new systems that are kind of these out there systems. They've done it multiple times in a row now, but they just don't really do that with their games.
But
like
I would argue that something like Breath of the Wild was kind of a brand new out there system for them. It was basically them tackling the open world genre, which they had essentially never done. And then they also did
Chronicles X. That was an open world game.
I also think some Zelda games are sort of open world. Sure, they didn't have the same scope because they didn't have the same power, but I would say Twilight Princess is as open world as you could probably get on the Wii.
Maybe. I mean, but I guess at the end of the day, what does it matter if something like Breath of the Wild didn't have the Zelda property attached? People would have seen that as a new franchise. And we all know that if these big publishers are going to release a tentpole $100 million game over the holidays with a huge development backing, they're going to almost need to attach it to an established franchise. So
that's totally not debatable. I totally agree with you.
And I also want to say the opposite, Peter. If you didn't put Zelda on that Breath of the Wild, it wouldn't sell. Like maybe that's agreeing with you, but I don't think it's anything new. It's not a new Zelda. I mean, like it's the same open world idea. Like I'm looking for a brand new IP, a new idea.
Okay, so you're looking for a completely new IP because, like, for me,
actually, sorry, I don't even care about a new IP. I just care about a new idea. Like I'll give you a crazy out there example: Donkey Kong Jungle Beat.
Loved it.
I loved it, but Donkey Kong, it's a 2D side-scrolling platforming game, and all of a sudden they have these weird. Again, that one's kind of a side-scrolling platforming game, anyways. But at least it had the bongos, But I just.
But I mean,
I want to see something. Nintendo thrives on their creativity, but their games are just kind of reiterations always. But they play it safe for their games.
I guess for me, for me to expect something new from Nintendo would be something like a brand new take on a 3D platformer that's starring Donkey Kong or Kirby, or a brand new take on a battle royale, which is Pikmin, and every single character is a different color Pikmin. Or, something like that where it's an established franchise, but it's doing something completely brand new with it. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that idea you just thought of would be so awesome and a brand new idea. If they made a Pikmin like a battle royale, that would be an awesome idea. Brand new. That'd be cool.
I also think, we shouldn't discredit them because, there was Labo, there was Ring Fit Adventure. There was ARMS, so it's like it's not really. I think it's a bit disingenuous to say they just rehash the same games over and over again. I mean, it's not Ubisoft,
No,
what's funny is I was going to throw something in about Ubisoft because before they had huge sexual harassment cases against them and all of their a lot of people have slightly disappeared without any consequence. Ubisoft did an E3 a few years ago where they launched like 20 new IPs, and I was like, there was what was it?
The
It's
open
like a
world
snowboarding
game.
Oh yeah,
Oh
there was
yeah.
that. That was wacky. There's like a whole bunch of. It was almost like just a ton of things to be thrown out into the world, and most of them were terrible, or most of them didn't make anything out of them. But I really appreciated the shot that was given because the truth is, inevitably, like your main properties, as much as they have like a strong like backing behind them, right? You know, your Zeldas, your Kirby's. I mean, I
Hmm.
feel more right now. It's mostly like their Mario's, their Zeldas. You have this challenge, which is we can't scare away our audience by doing something new because they're so rabid. Like the
Hmm.
Nintendo fan base, like is ready for blood when you don't do anything, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
like really, and it's dangerous, right? Like as a game company, because, or, you know, or as a movie company, or as any company, when you're like, well, we want to like break free of these challenges, hence Pokemon being the same all the time. And, you know, there's side games that you get to sort of play with. But I think about how when you want to launch new IP, just like everything else, it's always dangerous. But you have to, as a bigger company, you need that like new blood because in 5 or 6 years from now, people aren't going to buy Mario U again for the fifth time, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to buy Mario Kart 8 like HD 4K
Well,
again for
I
the
No, but they're
will.
not
I
gonna.
will,
They won't
Mike.
buy Mario. Me too, but they won't buy
I
Mario
know.
Kart 8 again. But they will buy Mario Kart 9 and Mario Kart 10 and Mario Kart
Oh,
like.
agreed.
Yeah.
And I totally think the same thing about Party. Like I think the latest Mario Party was a total shit show, but I would have loved
It's the highest
a
selling
like
Mario
really
Party.
good heart. It's just too bad. You know what though? You know, high selling or not, it's just like it's just like not as it's just not as delightful from my perspective. But like, do you remember when they decided that everybody should play Mario Party in the same car? I think it was Mario Party
And
8.
9 and
9 and
10.
10, awful.
I already commented.
Yeah.
I commented on that a couple of episodes ago. Terrible game.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
It
horrendous.
ruined Mario Party for me
But Mike,
What
forever.
you
is
know,
the best part about Mario Party? Playing autonomously with friends. Now let's
and
remove all of that and
I,
streamline it.
I do
And
think they're going to bring a
yeah.
new Mario Party out this year. But Mike, to what you're saying, I definitely agree, and I think that's why things like Splatoon have been so mega great because now they just got this new AAA mega selling franchise. And same, you know, on Sony camp, they've got things like The Last of Us,
Yeah, exactly.
which are big. So I definitely agree that new IP is definitely powerful. I would love to see something new. But I guess for me, I guess the fanboy in me says I would also love to see just a
Yeah,
new idea, but with a property that I'm fond of. Like, even if
Oh,
they did like a
you
new,
can have both. I think.
yeah,
I
like,
think
even-
you should have both.
imagine a new take on the like a new take on an RPG that's a claymated Earthbound or a shmup
to be
smile Star Fox. Like there's so many different ideas they could with their working IP. You know.
But to be totally honest, I don't even. I mean, as much as I want those things, at the end of the day, I will take the same exact thing reiterated. You know what I mean? Like even if
Oh,
Breath
I
of the
know
Wild,
you would. I know
even
both of
like
you would. You
like
sick.
exactly like Pikmin 4. If it's the same exact collect game, you know, with different colored Pikmin, day one. If it was a new Donkey Kong side-scrolling game, day one. If it was a Mario game, day one. If it was a Zelda game, no matter what it is, day like
But yeah,
Nintendo has that effect. So like as much as I want new IP and new and I am the one promoting new IPs and new game styles, I will also be super excited for any of the old game. Like I would love a new Fire Emblem to be announced. That would be awesome.
there's
You know,
rumors.
like
There's
100%.
rumors of remakes of the Wii and GameCube ones. You hear about that?
yeah. Yeah, I did.
But you know, I would say you guys are being hard on Nintendo, but at the same time, what
I'm being hard on Nintendo.
You both are.
I just said I would buy
I know,
any
but
game
as far
day one.
as far as saying they release the same thing over and over again, I mean, what exactly is Sony doing or Microsoft doing? Sure, they're releasing maybe a new named IP, but they're still your third person shooter or your first person shooter. Oh, it's a first person shooter with like a new sticky type of grenade. Like it's the same
No, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing where Nintendo, at least with something like Mario Odyssey, sure it's Mario, sure it's a 3D collecting moons Mario, but the hat mechanic is newer than anything I've seen in any first person shooter from Microsoft in 10 years. So
Well, Microsoft, yeah, but I'll give you a few.
I just mean Nintendo's
hold on.
innovation is,
I
is
love
within.
how quickly you come to Nintendo's
They're-
defense when
they're-
nobody was criticizing them.
Well, you
It's
guys
just
are
so
you guys
good.
are saying that they release the same thing
No,
over
hold
and
on.
over
I'll-
again.
I just
give you
thought
a few
we play it
examples.
safe, and I would love to see new IP.
but-
That's all.
Some
And Derek
examples
was
are-
saying, "I'm so happy about indies, and I'd buy every game they've released anyway, day one."
but Peter, some examples are like Ghost of Tsushima, or even Spider-Man. Are Spider-Man whatever, but I
Brand
just
new
mean-
IP, Spider-Man.
Well, no, but brand new to the Sony ecosystem, right? And if you look at Nintendo, what have they brought recently? You know,
Well, I guess my only point was that Nintendo's innovation seems to be within their established IP, and
I just don't think
they're
it's as big of innovation as you think it is.
well, yeah,
And
maybe.
I honestly, Sony and Microsoft should be held accountable for this too. I think all three of them, and again, this has to do with the big budget of gaming. When you're putting hundreds of millions of dollars in, you have to guarantee it sells, so you play
Yep.
safe.
Yep.
But and that's again, I think that's why, and I'm not actually complaining, because I think that's why we have this kind of indie renaissance,
Agreed.
because indie games are selling, and now they're on every platform, and they're on handhelds, and they're on PC, and they're selling like crazy. And these small teams of 1 to 3 people, I talked about Valheim a couple episodes ago. I don't know if you played that game, Mike, but Valheim on Steam was 5 guys. It's already sold, I think, 6 or 7 million copies in 2 months.
Mhm.
So, these games can have huge success with small teams, and they're well-made games. So I think if you want, again, I'm not really complaining. I always like the new ideas that Nintendo has, but if they play it safe, that's fine, because it allows the indie games to also sell well. And I kind of like having a bit of both.
Yep, that's a good point. That as budgets have gone up, and you need to guarantee success. It's the same thing with movies, right? Where we're seeing all
Oh
these
yeah.
reboots and remakes, and big studios are afraid to make a big budget new IP because of it did not guarantee its success. Um, but anyways, that's a good segue into our next topic. What's not a good segue, but anyways. We originally were going to talk about, kind of a non-Nintendo topic. Mike, I know you're kind of an Xbox guy now, and Derek, you've kind of gravitated towards PlayStation. We all know where I stand on the Nintendo camp here, but I mean, all of us have dabbled. We're all multiple system owners.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think it's a fun time to talk about this kind of brand new console war that's been waging, or soft console war. I don't know how much of a war it is, but PS5 is obviously out. The Xbox Series X and S is obviously out, and they're both selling out completely. But they obviously have these differences, and there's kind of which one's better. Derek, why don't you start us off? Tell us what you think about the kind of the PS5 versus the Xbox Series from what you've seen, and where you think they're both going to go this generation.
I think they're both awesome systems. It depends on who you are as a consumer. I think if you haven't played a lot of games, and you're trying to jump in and just play a bunch of fun games, I think Xbox is the system for you, because again, Game Pass is probably one of the best, besides for Steam having the whole platform. It's one of the best architecture inventions for gaming ever, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And you have so many games, so many companies going on there, and I think Microsoft is developing to be a strong contender in the next 5 or 10 years with exclusives. And I'm being realistic with 5 or 10 years,
That's
because we know how long.
that's a very safe stance. But I mean, when all the dust settles in 5-6 years from now, sales. Who do you think will be ahead for sales?
Okay,
And also,
I
who do you
think,
think will be
yeah.
ahead for like the gamer collective mindset? Because we all look back and we all know PS4 beat Xbox. We all know 360 and PS3 were pretty tied, but 360 probably pulled ahead. What do you think will be the winner in our collective minds?
I think without a doubt PlayStation, and a few
Ooh.
reasons is, one, a lot of people own computers, and all the Microsoft games are going on the PC as well, right? They're all accessible on Steam or the Microsoft Store, so you don't necessarily need to buy that Xbox. Where PlayStation exclusives, I know there are some that are coming out now on the computer, but for the most part, they are on PlayStation. So if you want to play those, you have to buy that PlayStation. And right now, the exclusives are there; they're coming out. Where again, I think you need another 5-10 years for Microsoft to really get that ball rolling with all those new acquisitions they made. So I think in those 5 or 6 years, you're going to see, again, I think this generation PlayStation will win by a landslide, but I don't think it will be as huge of a gap as it was in the PS4 Xbox One generation. And I think especially in the US, the gap will be very, very, very tight.
What do you say to that, Mike? How do you respond to Derek's? Derek thinks PS5 is going to win.
It's not really. It's interesting because I think of it from a software perspective. Like, I live in like interface design. I live in like a universe of like, how do you build recurring revenue bundles and like really strong offerings? So the thing that I think offhand is you can't like the Satya Nadella team at Microsoft, like Nadella like focused his entire early stage in getting all of their offerings online. He was their push for cloud service. And whenever they make new acquisitions, they're very well tied in. I think when they buy Discord, which I think is going to happen, I
Yeah,
think
me
that's
too.
going to really it's going to really change the game because you have to think about something separate outside of gaming, which is Microsoft has the number one recurring revenue bundle on the planet, Office.
Wait,
No,
are we?
like
I so hold on. Are we talking about Microsoft versus Sony? Or are we talking about PlayStation versus Xbox? Because
oh,
I
I'm taking a step back because like the thing is the way that what I'm trying to describe is I think the way that Xbox is approaching this is very different than the way that Sony is because and
Absolutely.
they're very long plays. So for instance, okay, when you think about like you could easily talk about like the Bethesda acquisition as like a really good idea, but I think when you take a step back and you look at the way that they're integrating into cloud-based software for streaming on phones, making sure that they play well cross-console. All of their exclusives, like something like Sea of Thieves, is on Steam, it's on the Microsoft Store, and it's on Xbox, and you can play it with all of those people. They're really working towards opening up that community, right?
Mhm.
yeah, like
And
I agree. A community gaming like on online world,
yeah.
if that makes
And when
sense.
you link in something like Discord, because obviously they've had challenges with things like Mixer and they've had challenges in other areas too. But that's actually where I think that I don't see them as failures. I see them as tests that like cost them time, but they gave them a lot of things back. And if you think about this from that perspective of like, if Discord is picked up, and I'm really just parroting here, but if Discord is picked up, they will very likely have the opportunity to get a really good new recurring revenue bundle outside of just Game Pass and outside of everything else, which is currently right now, what is it called? Like the Discord Premium version. But if they bake that into their Game Pass offering, so many people will make that choice. And so there's little tiny bonuses like this that don't necessarily raise console sales like one to one. What it does is it just makes more Xbox acquisitions. So if I like let's say like I didn't get the opportunity to grab a PlayStation 5. I was like very, very close. But because of the sort of blunder in the beginning of like launching it the day that it was announced and then all of these like kind of messy extras or for pre-orders in this case, I didn't get the opportunity to get one. And I was like kind of disappointed at first, but then I was just like, all of the other things that I do, all of my friends have multiple platforms, and all of them are happy to jump on games that I can play from my Xbox. And so all of a sudden, the exclusives, despite my interest in exclusives, because I think like Sony has incredible exclusives, they're starting to dwindle. Because right now, especially inside, when I live inside all day in COVID, I want to play with my friends. And though you can play tons of really great Sony games with your friends, it's so much easier to integrate. Like, I don't have to go, wait, which version do you have? I can play on any console with most people. And I think that's
Yeah.
sort of their long game.
I think we
And
can
so
all
it's
agree
hard. Yeah.
as far as the like the hardware goes and they're backwards compatible and like the services, the unified
Yeah.
services. I mean, I think Xbox is absolutely crushing Nintendo and PlayStation.
Yeah, their
And
architecture. Yeah,
it's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
exactly. As
It's
a platform,
phenomenal.
I think they're doing super well. And so I don't really know if it's you made the mention about movies previously, Peter, which I think is interesting because when box office sales are produced, as soon as Netflix started producing like Netflix movies, they I think there's this whole conversation about how they stopped showing off what their box office sales were because they believe that even if their movies don't do well in an opening weekend or whatever, they stay in syndication eternally. So they always get value out of them. So there's like it's weird to compare these things directly because like even if Xbox doesn't sell as many like One X's or sorry One X Series X's or Series S's or whatever their future upgrades are, they're slowly but surely siphoning people to over by like little tiny upgrades via that whether you're on a phone or whether you're on whether you're on a PC. And I think that's like the area that's encroaching on Sony's territory. So I'm really curious to see how it'll turn out because I feel like, and this is just my opinion, I just feel like a lot of Japanese consoles or Japanese like games on their end, they really kind of forget about these things. They tunnel vision very closely, like to their core offerings, but I think they forget that like there's so many other little things that they have to catch up on, and that's why the online offerings may not be as strong or may not be as integrated, and that kind of breaks my heart. Like Sony's not a great like software producer, but it's a great hardware producer, and I want to see those things kind of mirror.
I do wonder if, we're talking long game here, because you're right. Like the Game Pass is gonna, and the Xbox kind of integrated service is gonna last beyond the Series X. It'll be the Series Y and the Xbox Bucks 720 X, whatever. But is it something that Sony is going to be left behind on, like, or is it something that can Sony, like I suppose Nintendo has, kind of rest on their laurels and their development pool and their franchises and their brand name, and still kind of keep going? Like, will Sony find a way to do what Microsoft is doing, or are they going to kind of keep drumming their own beat? It seems like right now it's Sony's game to lose, but at the same time, Sony also feels like, even though they're winning in market share, mind share, and sales, it kind of feels like they're still catching up to Microsoft in a weird way. So I do wonder if Sony will get left behind with that kind of strong unified architecture, and with obviously Xbox's strong exclusive developers, we're gonna see some major games, Elder Scrolls and all the Bethesda stuff. Like, what do you think? Do you think in the long game we're gonna see Xbox take the market share and the mind share from PlayStation? Or, I mean, maybe not Xbox, but Game Pass and Microsoft's unified architecture.
I think you're right there. I think it's at the Game Pass level, and I think it's at like that software level, wherever you can integrate or have additional touch points. And this is just my opinion here, but with Sony has like a really unpleasant reputation when it comes to moving on. They sort of leave, they do their best to keep servicing for their previous consoles, but often, like, with the sort of mini debacle here about like shutting down PS3 and Vita games, like there's like this kind of awkwardness in going like, oh yeah, wait, those are the same guys that like were hacked multiple times, and also they had all these problems. And when Xbox was like, hey, we'll happily, or Microsoft was like, we'll happily integrate more online games together with you, Sony, they're like, no, we don't trust you. They're like these weird, like, for me, they're these sort of standout moments, which is just like, we want to play on our own. But I can't necessarily trust that Sony will do so. And I've had bad experiences with like the return policies before they actually started to offer a real return policy, and just moments where I'd purchase something and like, you'd have like bizarre credits. Like maybe I paid too much, like press the accept button twice, and then I have to argue with a PlayStation rep for 3 hours to get $8 back. And the thing is, that never happens with Microsoft, right?
It is worth mentioning, though, that a generation ago, when Xbox One and PS4 were unveiled, we'd almost be having the exact opposite conversation, where Xbox One was the one restricting, sharing games and backwards compatibility, and
That's a good point.
So it's like, anything could really happen. I mean, there's rumors that PlayStation are going to announce their own model of Game Pass, and
they already have PlayStation Now.
But I mean, some sort of PlayStation Now, and I think there's also PlayStation Plus collection or something. But I think ultimately, like it always has, it always comes down to the games, and it really comes out like, if Microsoft comes out and like the new Rare game or the new Bethesda game is so incredibly killer and mind blowing, like a new GTA 3 or a new Breath of the Wild or a new Halo. It really does come down to the games in the end of the day, I think. It doesn't, services, controllers, prices, it seems to always fall on the games. So it's really it really is hard to predict. I mean, with this generation, obviously Microsoft has so much power behind them, and they bought so many strong developers, rumored to buy more. I think we're just kind of, as far as the collective mindshare of gamers of who wins this generation, I think it's a coin toss between the two, because it's going to be who has those big games and first, and who gets the mindshare. And right now, Sony's got a lot of exclusives. They had a way better launches in terms of exclusives. They've got a way better slate of exclusives this year. But then again, we've got, Halo Infinite and Starfield perhaps coming out this year. And I've got to say, as strong as Sony's been for their exclusive announcements, not a single one has really made my jaw drop. So I guess we've yet to see that big major exclusive on either side this generation so far. But I really think it comes down to to who has that, who has those better exclusives, who wins. Let's say the collective gamer mind share.
I'm curious about your thoughts, Derek, because like, what do you think? Like after I like took a 180 and went a different direction, what do you think about? How do you think Sony will respond, or more specifically, what do you think like the outcomes will be? Not necessarily the outcomes of this back and forth, but how do you think? Like, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I like that you brought up the idea of like, acquiring Discord and just kind of the touch points of Microsoft kind of, it's not just about the games. They're building something much bigger than that. It's a bigger scope. And I agree. And I agree with Peter that I think Microsoft has this kind of upswing and this momentum that's carrying them. And I think it can become, like a tidal wave and really take over. And I think Sony is right now kind of either not showing us or kind of resting on their heels, or maybe they're kind of caught off guard by how popular Game Pass is and how they're kind of trying to play catch up or figure out how they can, turn the table. But I don't want to overlook, when I think about Xbox and exclusives, I think of Halo and Gears of War and maybe Forza, and those games sell. But then when I think about PlayStation, you have these games that are selling 20 to 30 million, and that's no small amount of money that's or income that's coming into or profits.
Sorry, which Sony exclusive has sold 20 million plus? I don't think they really. I think they haven't actually cracked 20 million on a Sony exclusive.
Oh, I thought, I just assumed like God of War and The Last of Us 2.
I think they're up there in the 10s to 15 millions, but I don't think they've got 20 to 30. That's Nintendo territory we're talking.
This guy.
But no, sorry, I don't mean.
What about Spider-Man?
I think Spider-Man's around 18 million. But I don't mean to cut you off. I see your point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Maybe not the numbers I said, but still these huge selling games that we can't just overlook. And as much as you say Game Pass, let's say, is enticing and it's bringing in profits for Microsoft, it's not like people aren't buying PlayStation Plus. Maybe not in the same. I mean, every person.
I think it was one of their largest. I think it's one of the larest recurring revenue bundles ever. Yeah. It's incredibly profitable for them for sure.
Yeah. So I mean. I think Microsoft has that upswing, and I think it will be a close race. And I think PlayStation or Sony is a little bit caught off guard about how popular or how much power Xbox is kind of acquiring, both through their design strategies for their architecture, as well as literally acquiring new developers or new companies like Bethesda and the drove of games that they bring. So I think Sony is going to be looking to acquire companies or is going to be looking to kind of change up their ecosystem. It's just whether the PlayStation 5 is going to be they're going to be able to do it in time to kind of stop that pushing force of Microsoft. I mean,
Sony bought Insomniac, and we've seen them kind of getting tight with Square Enix
and Blue Point Games.
But they're more of a smaller remake developer. But we've seen Sony also kind of get close with Square Enix. I mean, they've always been close, but Final Fantasy 16 is going to be exclusive. That new, I can't remember the name of it. They showed it recently. That other Square Enix game is going to be a PS5, at least console exclusive at first. But I think we can all agree that this is probably the best generation for games because
couldn't agree more. I think all three consoles are enticing enough that I want to own. I want to own all three, and that's the first generation ever where I truly like. I would not want to give up my Switch for an Xbox. I wouldn't want to give up my PlayStation for an Xbox, but I wouldn't want to skip out on the Xbox either. I agree. I think all three are going to bring so much, especially by the last couple of years of the generation. It's like, how could I possibly miss on any of them?
Agreed. This is definitely the first generation where I felt very compelled to have all three. And I mean, to be honest, I'd buy a PS5 today if I could, and I would have all three. So
yeah, I'd buy an Xbox probably in a year or two. Exactly.
So I think
it's
that's
funny
really interesting.
I'm very, and this is just. I guess this is just personal, but in the beginning, the hype really caught me, and I was like, "Oh man, gotta get a PS5." But now I'm not as enticed, and I don't know what the actual reason is, but what I'm noticing is my intrigue surrounding PlayStation 5 exclusives is not as high, and I think for the very first time, I think the biggest reason is because all of my friends are linked into my community of gaming friends are all on either a PC or an Xbox, and a lot of them have multiple consoles. So, but I'm finding myself like not as enticed to buy a new PlayStation, but also I just think it's so unpleasant to look at. as a
The actual
console.
the design.
But
yeah.
Yeah. What do you? Derek has one. Like, what do you like the design of the PS5, Derek?
I like it. It looks cool. I mean, I have it standing up. It is big and tall.
It's
I mean,
huge, absolutely huge.
I think the slim will look way better, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's fine.
it's likely when I'll get into the ecosystem.
The
I'll
Xbox
probably
Series
get
X.
into
I gotta
Slim.
say, side note, the Xbox Series X is maybe the sexiest console design I've ever seen. Maybe since the Wii. The Wii was very sexy,
But
or the GameCube. But the Xbox Series X is beautiful.
But the one thing I want to say, Mike, is that you keep, and it's a fair point, is you keep bringing up this idea of like all my friends are on this system, all my
That's right.
friends, and that's awesome when you're playing online multiplayer games. You know, you're playing the Call of Duties, Battlefield, you're playing the I don't know, racing games or Halo. You're playing those
Yeah.
online games. But for the single player games, what does Xbox have, right? I don't need my friends. I don't need my friends. So when I think about single player games, which is I rarely play online. Like I don't play first person shooters, and I don't play online games. I play, you know, those story driven single player games, and that's where I think Nintendo does pretty good, and I think PlayStation really shines. So
I
that's
think that
kind of
PlayStation super shines there.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
that's where I lean, right? I'm just not one of those. I don't need my friends to be online with me because frankly, I don't have that many friends that play games at my age anymore.
I don't have that many friends. Period.
oh.
No
Don't worry,
surprise there.
you have at least one here. And
I
we'll
got
never
two friends,
express
and
who it
hopefully
is.
a listener or two. But you know, it's funny. I totally agree. Like, if I buy a PS5, I probably won't get the online service. I'll probably only get one controller, and I'll be there just for the single player exclusives. And to be honest, the thing I'm most excited for on PS5 is The Last of Us 2 getting a 60 frames update. But that's still very exciting to me because I'm literally waiting to replay that. But
It's
yeah,
funny. It's funny because my opinion here. Let's go back to what Derek was saying. The thing is, you're totally right about like not playing online games. I don't even consider myself as much of an online gamer, but Game Pass just brought like the entire Yakuza series to it, right? All 6 editions, plus they had the exclusive Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon, which is brilliant, by the way, absolutely wonderful. But the thing is, they're starting to siphon out what used to be these old exclusives on other consoles.
Yeah.
Right. And I have a feeling that like their Bethesda acquisition, we're going to start to see sort of what was traditionally like a Sega exclusive or a Sega game, you know, that was strictly on PlayStation. I think we're going to start to see those start coming in. The amount of like role-playing games that are just starting to sneak up onto Game Pass is actually like was slightly shocking to
oh
me.
yeah,
I was just like,
tons of Final
yeah.
Fantasies. You got Tales
all
of
the Final
Vesperia.
Fantasies are there. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and like
think
those things are starting to pop up. So I think back to I think the thing is like I always considered a PlayStation like my solo gaming console, and I've always loved it for that. Like you said you weren't a big Persona fan, but like Persona I really enjoyed. Like I talked about 13 Sentinels. I have so many games that I played like exclusively on my PlayStation 4, and I was like so thrilled to have it last generation. But I made that jump. I'm still not 100% as to why I made that jump, but like it was such and or why I'm not interested in making the leap over to PS5 even if I had the chance. I'm just not sure why. It's weird. I think about this out loud, honestly.
To me, it really takes that kind of one game. I remember I bought a PS3 for Metal Gear Solid 3, and it really just depends on that one big game. I don't know if we've seen Sony's one big game yet, but things like Returnal really look great, and Deathloop really look great, and same with Ratchet looks good. So it's a wait and see. But and also with Microsoft, Derek, I mean, you mentioned they don't have the single player exclusives. I mean, just wait. They've got a ton of games announced.
That's what I mean. I think especially with acquiring ZeniMax, they will. Like Arcane Studios are some of my favorite single player games ever. So I'm excited for whatever they're going to bring after Deathloop.
Yeah,
I honestly hope they do. I hope they do another. I was gonna say Fear. That's not what it was.
Prey.
Prey. Yeah, I'd love to see.
I love Prey on PS4. It was awesome.
But certainly,
absolutely.
Back to what you were saying, Mike, with Xbox and the Game Pass kind of stealing what we traditionally associate as PlayStation series. Like, look at the MLB The Show. Like you said, Yakuza. Things like Forza, kind of taking away the steam from Gran Turismo. I mean, it's kind of like it's Sony's to lose this generation, and I think we can all agree probably Sony is going to lose a little bit of market share to Xbox because they seem to be firing on all cylinders compared to where they were last generation, and same with Nintendo. I mean, the Switch is a lot better than Wii U, so I think as great as PS5 will end up, PS5 will end up losing market share this generation, where Xbox and Nintendo are just gaining.
And the last thing I want to say about this whole thing was, there's way in the beginning of this console cycle, there's this big conversation between like The Verge's Neil Patel and I think it was Phil Spencer, a handful of people just like talking about what their expectations were for the console generation, and backwards compatibility came up and a handful of other things. And the simple answer that like kind of stuck in my mind here was that like when it comes down to like backwards compatibility was the topic, and the phrase was like, well, what do you think about this? And it's like, well, the idea that Microsoft is going to launch this setup where you can play on any console, whether it was like previous or post or whatever the case is, like they're a software company. They can do that. And that's the realm where I think Sony is behind. And that was what I hope to see this generation from Sony. Because like I don't think either of them are out, clearly. I don't think the market share might be a little bit here and there, but I think if Sony wants to make like a really smart decision, they have to figure out a way to be smarter on like the integrations, which other huge companies are. And I think if they were to do some acquisitions, rather than acquiring another game company, I would acquire a company that like understands things like architecture way better.
And emulation. Yeah, I think if there's one thing I hope Sony takes out of from Microsoft, it's they come out with a strong backwards compatible setup with that you can play PlayStation games, PS2 games, PS3 games with some sort of upgrades that Xbox has. I mean, that would be so awesome because obviously there's a lot of nostalgia tied to those older systems that they don't seem to care about.
And to Derek's point, like they have such phenomenal exclusives. Why not enhance them and keep people back in? If Microsoft can't steal The Last of Us, the PlayStation 3 era, like why not? I know they're technically redoing it right now, but why not build a structure where all of those phenomenal like PS3 and PS2 games and PS4 games that are exclusive are just easy to play here? Like why aren't they always like PlayStation Now or whatever the service they build? It should just be like every console exclusive that we've ever had is here. Do it. You know what I mean? Like. That would be an easy switch for me. I'd be like, oh, damn. Okay.
And I mean, we could say the same thing about Nintendo. I think it's just a different... I mean, I don't know what Sony's going to do, but I think Nintendo has kind of drawn their line in the sand and saying, we're not going to do that model. You know,
I know. I think
Nintendo's... Yeah, I think they're very clearly saying, no, we're just going to keep reselling our old games and not just make them... They're not going to do what Microsoft's doing.
No.
But I think, in 10 years... Nintendo will actually go back on that because subscription services are just the thing now, right? They're taking over. So I think Nintendo will eventually change, but they have a very different model. So you don't necessarily have to do that model.
The one thing I do wonder about though is that Microsoft is they're a very smart software-based company. And I don't know if these Japanese companies are the same way. I mean, we've seen, for an example, like something like Ninja Gaiden, Tecmo Koei came out and said, well, we've kind of more or less lost the code to the original. And, when something like Konami tried to re-release Silent Hill 2 and 3 remastered, they were butchered remasters. So I'm not so sure that companies like Nintendo have access to the original code to F-Zero GX and to, and we know they can emulate their N64 games, but I mean... Maybe in the future they'll find an emulation solution, but I'm not so sure that Nintendo ever will do that. I think they have their classic staples, like their NES, SNES games, and even N64. But I don't know if we ever will see like DS, 3DS, or GameCube emulated in future generations. I think they might just be lost as relics in time. You know what I mean?
You don't think DS and 3DS and GameCube games will be emulated? They have literally all been emulated already
by Nintendo, though. I think if anything, if Nintendo's going to bring back like a GameCube, a beloved GameCube game, they'll slap it into widescreen and sell for full price. You know what I mean? So
agreed.
Yeah, that's the Nintendo way. And you'll buy every single one of them.
Eventually, I'm gonna have to go and just cave and buy a GameCube again and buy F-Zero GX because I have no way to play it. But anyways, we're a little short on time, so we'll get to our last segment here. It's the I was gonna do what have you been playing, but I think this week we'll do something a little different, and we'll say. Okay. Well, we can do it too, but I was gonna say, what's the next game you guys are gonna buy, and like what are you looking forward to about it? And Mike, why don't you let us know? Is there something on the radar that's not released yet that's coming out that you're excited about?
I'm gonna pass this on to Derek. I have to think about this one.
Okay, I knew
Yeah,
I'd catch
so
up.
I'm gonna. I want to do what are you playing too? Because I always
Okay,
like doing
do
that.
both. Do both.
Okay, so on.
I'm gonna do fucking both. Love that.
Okay, so on the horizon, April 30th, Pokemon Snap.
Mhm.
Looking forward to that. I think it's the best looking Pokemon game
Ever.
And to be honest, yeah, and I don't really like the gameplay of Pokemon anymore, so I don't really care about the franchise. But I like the actual IP, if that makes sense. Like I don't like
And
the
I
core
love the
game.
monsters.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They're
I don't like
so cool.
I don't like the core gameplay of the mainline
Just
games.
grind for 8 or 1,200 hours. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pokemon
but
Snap, it looks amazing. I'm
It
getting
looks-
it day
yeah.
one too. Yeah.
I already day one, and then after that, I know Resident Evil 8 comes out early in May, and then Ratchet and Clank comes out. Returnal looks really cool, but I think I'm gonna wait for a price drop.
Mhm.
And as far as what I've been playing, um, the same as I've mentioned other episodes, but the new game I've been playing is Bug Fables. I got it a while ago on the Nintendo Switch. It's an indie game. It's like Paper Mario but bugs. And
Yeah.
I finally had more time to get into it. It is freaking so good. There's so much more to it than I thought there was. There's like secret islands and dungeons and bosses, and there's side quests, and the story's funny. It's like it really is the best Paper Mario since Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door.
Can I ask you a question, Derek?
Yeah.
So my big issue with Paper Mario, the original two, the good ones, was that they were so incredibly easy. Your HP only got up to 30. You never really had to level up. There was no strategy involved. Like, is it easy in Bug
So
Fables?
at the very beginning of the game, you can get something called a hard metal, and you equip it, and the whole game becomes harder. And what's cool is if you beat bosses with it, you get extra badges or whatever. And so I've been playing it with the whole time, and some of the bosses take me a few tries, and there's areas where you go and you're like, oh my god, I'm getting killed and murdered, and you have to play really smart. In every fight, like the game is not easy. Like I'm not kidding, the game is not easy. I wouldn't say it's Dark Souls, but it's much harder than Paper Mario, especially with the hard metal. I really recommend playing it with the hard metal though. It's
Yeah,
like it's really really good.
I'm buying it. How much
It's
was it?
so-
How much did it cost?
I can't remember. You have to check. It's worth it. It's a really really good game, and it's way longer than you think, in a good sense. There's just so much more to it than you think.
Good
Like, it's
writing as well. Good music writing.
same kind of silly humorous writing as Paper Mario. Maybe not as funny as Paper Mario because they just have some really good jokes, but still very funny. Great graphics, very smooth. Like gameplay works well. Like creative. I couldn't rave about the game more. Like if you're looking for a Paper Mario experience, you grab Bug Fables.
I might grab that. Yeah.
Fable
Mike,
sounds lovely.
I'll give you a little more time here, Mike. Because
Please.
my upcoming games are pretty close to Derek's. I'm gonna get Pokemon Snap. I think it looks amazing. It also looks like the kind of game I can play with my girlfriend, and just kind of like low stress, relaxing game.
Yeah.
Where you can just play a little bit and have fun with it. I think Resident Evil 8 looks awesome, but I'll probably get that when it drops to $20 2 weeks after release. Because that's how Capcom rolls. And what I've been playing, I think you guys both know I've been playing It Takes Two. I love that game. Mike,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
pick it up
good.
actually.
I recommended it to Peter, and he finally got it.
Yeah, I finally got it. I'm about 2 chapters in. I'm going to play a little bit more after our podcast tonight. It's really great. But I mean, for the most part, I gotta say, there's not a lot I'm really that excited about on the horizon, other than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So,
Is there a release date for that game?
fall.
Okay.
So, not too much. Mike, how about you?
I think the sad truth is I'm gonna pick up It Takes Two. I think that's my next purchase, but I don't have any like on the horizon games. Most of the games that I'm curious about, like most games that are coming out this year, I haven't really considered. So I was like, if there's a couple that will like really blow my mind, maybe. But like I think the games that I have been playing though, I've been playing like a few at the same time. I have a bad habit of doing that. 13 Sentinels, I guess Rem is great. I would say it has a lot of flaws, but I think its kind of overarching ideas are really great and fun, and I appreciate the exploration and the way that they approach it. even if some of the gameplay is kind of dull. I think for the most part, it's worth the push through. I've also been playing. Yakuza 7. I'm actually savoring it because it's really phenomenal. It's like really lovely. The writing is really
it's a
smart.
turn-based, right, Mike?
Yeah, and that really put me off in the beginning. I've moved so far away from classical role playing or like JRPG style like battle systems. And I mean, with the entire rest of the series being a brawler, which have been fun and silly and also like janky in their own right, I was kind of disappointed. But after a while, once I got the hang of it, it's so charming that I don't care. And it's been sort of like an aspect of a bunch of games that I absolutely love, where they're like, for instance, like Persona 4, when I played it for the Vita, the battle system is boring and painful and like unpleasant, but the characters are so charming and like the game itself is so thoughtful that it almost disappears out of my mind. I'm never like, oh yeah, right, that terrible battle system. And the same thing with Dragon Quest, literally Yakuza Like a Dragon. There are these beautiful moments where like, you know, you're gonna go quote unquote change your jobs, your class, and you have to go to like the equivalent of like a job handout location in the city that like allows you to be a construction worker or whatever, and those are your class changes. And to me, they're like so delightful, and its wacky sense of humor is so good. Like I'm very close to the end of the game, and I'm just like slowly beating it while playing other games because I just like don't want it to end. It's delightful.
No, Mike, just because I'm not sure, is there like a continuity to the Yakuza series? Is it the same character, or how do they
there is a huge continuity. So from the original all the way through 6, it's like the same character. It's a huge overarching story. I've beaten 0, which I would 100% recommend to everybody.
That's what I've kind of scratched the surface on, and I thought I agree. It's like charming as hell.
Yeah, it's super charming, especially when you get the opportunity to. And the thing is that most of these games focus on a single protagonist. Actually, that's not always true, but in 0, with that mixture of 2 major protagonists and having each of them is so lovable in their own right, even though like one's more of a hard ass and one more was like a lovely like. It's just great. I think they do a really good job there. But I don't really care about getting fought in the street every 10 seconds. The thing is, though, I forget about that all the time because I'll like run into some street punk who wants to start a band and I have to teach him how to play the bass. And like that to me is such a delightful aspect of like storytelling in games that I just really miss from most other games in general. So yeah, that would be it. Like I think I'm trying to wrangle a bunch of different games. I'm always playing like any new game that comes out on Game Pass or like indie game that comes out on Game Pass. I check out because I'm always curious. So I've beat a bunch of Metroidvania-like games, which are a blast. They're never perfect, but sometimes it's good enough, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Derek will have to check it out on the PS5's Game Pass. Oh wait, he can't.
That's okay. I'll be playing Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Well, guys, that's about time for this week. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
You're more than welcome.
And to our listeners, if you are out there, if you listen to all of this, thank you. Please leave us a message or a comment, and we will answer or talk about it next week. We haven't had any comments yet, but we're really
one would be nice.
We actually had that one comment. Remember, Derek? It was someone soliciting for their porn website.
The bot, right?
It was a bot soliciting a porn website. It was our first comment, and we celebrated it. We both signed up for a year subscriptions.
They got us.
Yeah, they got us. But yeah,
are you telling me you guys didn't discuss this on the next episode like you promised?
Our audiences, we don't want to push away our young audience.
I see. Yeah, very young.
Yeah, but this has been the Nintendo Bros podcast. Thanks for listening. This is Pete.
No, sorry, this is Derek.
And this is Mike.
and we're signing out. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.